I don't know. I don't know. Is the student ready? Is the student ready? Yes, no. I don't know. What do you think? Hey. Yep. Well, welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name is Graham Wilson, and today I'll be talking about sending a student solo for the very first time in my basement. All right, so I was thinking, well, what should I talk about? As always, right? I'm always thinking, what should I talk about today? And yeah, this one kind of came to me pretty quickly. It was I had talked about first solos before, but from the student's perspective and my own personal first solo. And I wasn't really sure if there was anything out there online to help instructors understand what they should be doing when they're sending someone solo. And so I got thinking a bit more about it. And in Canada, we have I've referred to it many times, the flight instructor guide. And I took a few pages out of that. So the exercise 19, page 111 out of there we go, out of the flight instructor guide. It's funny, this flight instructor guide thing. You kind of glance through it a little bit when you're going for your different ratings of instructor or your different classes of instructor. There's 4 different classes of instructor in Canada, and you kind of glance at it, you kind of forget it, and you never really go back to it. And usually when you're teaching at a flight school, they're going to have their own procedures and everything that probably match with what's in the flight instructor guide. But I never actually went through it point by point. And I was thinking, after sending so many students solo, I'm not really sure exactly how many I've sent solo, maybe like 30 or 50 or something like that. It's hard to keep track. So, and then I've also supervised other students that have gone solo, but someone else signed off on them. So I've flown with a lot of people that I've known that, yep, they're ready to go. And let's just go through the what it says in the flight instructor guide. What does Transport Canada tell me I should have been doing all those years instructing? So, okay, what do we got here? Our objective is to determine the student is prepared to safely carry out a solo flight. Well, that's a pretty good objective, I guess, for your solo. And what else we got here? So I'll just go right to the advice for instructors. When the student is ready for solo, the pre-solo briefing should be short, ensuring that the student knows what to do on the flight. Keep advice to the bare minimum. Okay, pre-solo. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. And what else we got here? The dual trip prior to the first solo. And when we're talking about a dual flight and a solo flight, a dual flight in aviation lingo, when you're learning how to fly, dual flight is with the student and the instructor. That's dual. And then when the student's by themselves, that's the solo flight. So the dual trip prior to the first solo should leave sufficient fuel for the intended flight. Oh, Transport Canada is telling us to bring enough gas. Yeah, that's pretty good advice. There must be sufficient daylight. Oh, really? Oh, can't go booting around in the middle of the night if you can't see what's going on? Oh, okay. Suitable weather, of course, reasonable winds and traffic conditions to permit this flight to be carried out with minimum of distractions. So the minimum distractions, that's very important. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too. The pre-solo flight should not exceed 45 minutes in order to keep fatigue at minimum. Yep, that's true. What else we got here? We got okay, some other little long thing there. The first solo is an important step in the student's flying career. It is a never to be forgotten experience. Treated as such, personal congratulations and subsequent traditional school activities mean much to the student. So that's if you're dunking them with water or giving them a certificate or something like that. And okay, so that's yeah, most places do that. It's not advisable to tell students. Now, this one here is weird that the Transport Canada says. It's kind of a gray area. It says it is not advisable to tell students that you plan to send them solo until moments before the actual solo flight. The possible apprehension could delay the very flight that you are planning for them. Well, I don't know. That would be, you kind of have to let your students know sort of that they're going to be going solo. But I think this was written way back in the day when everything was all loosey goosey and like, ah, yeah, go take the plane up. But no, there's like an authorization sheet that has to be all signed off and everything. So if the plane crashes, then the insurance doesn't cover it because there wasn't a signature and the paperwork's not all done and everything. And then in the investigation, why didn't you sign that paper? Da, da, da. So I think this was a little bit. Uh, hasn't quite been updated. So I would not agree with the Transport Canada on that one. You kind of let the I usually used to tell the students, okay, if you're having a really great day today, I might send you solo. Probably not, but just in case, we'll stick another line on the flight sheet. And if it doesn't work, if it doesn't go today, we're having a bad day, we'll just scratch it out. We'll send you up solo some other time, something like that. Or we could get up there and the wind gets too bad, so it's looking good now, but maybe it's not, or it gets really busy at the airport with lots of traffic and I can't do it. So let's just cover our bases and get you to sign that. Okay, the students not thinking, oh, I have to do great because something else could keep them. See, that way it's not on them that they're not, or it's not on their performance why they're not going solo, even though it might be. You give them an excuse so they can save face on that one. So, and then, they don't feel stupid or anything. Okay, before the first solo flight. Okay, and then it talks about you got to make sure you um, teach all the things you're supposed to teach before that. Okay, what else we got here? Oh, another one. The student must be advised. Must be advised. That's a must from Transport Canada. So if it's a must, it's a must. It's not a should. It's a must. Be advised to anticipate a change in aircraft performance, such as shorter takeoff roll and increased rate of climb. Definitely. You got to warn your student about that. Normally, the student should have a dual check before the next solo flight. Okay. Okay, then on page 112, instruction and student practice. Carry out several dual circuits until satisfied as to competency of student and that suitable conditions exist. Yeah, of course. Advise the control tower if applicable and send student on solo flight. Okay, so that's everything that the government tells you. And here's what they don't tell you. So, oh, hey, we got Wrench over here in the chat too. Let's see what Wrench is talking about. Okay, yeah, so just a quick read here. Non-pilots don't know that a student pilot solos at about 10 to 20 hours. That's about right. Then he trains by him or herself, opposite of cars. With a car, a student has to have a real driver with them. Yeah, that's right. And in Canada, you could be 14 years old. Technically, you could be 14 years old and go flying around by yourself in a plane. That's pretty wild. Okay, and then Wrench is talking about remembering the Andy Griffith Show. Oh, you're showing your rerun knowledge or your actual age. Aunt B gets her pilot's license. When she solos, she's done. Okay. Well, the requirements to get your license years ago was like very low. I remember there was a guy at my local airport that, in order to get their license, I think they got their pilot's license. It was like, I think they needed 20 hours of flying time, and then you couldn't carry any passengers until you had 25 or something like that. And then so you'd have your 20 hours of flying time and the flight test. The examiner would stay on the ground, and the pilot would go up and climb up to 3,000 feet, do a 3-turn spin, recover, come back and land on the runway at a certain spot, and he had to glide it in. So the examiner would be listening to hear if he was goosing the power to cheat, And the examiner would just sit on the ground and watch the guy fly the plane, and did a couple circuits. Done. Here's your license, kid. And so it's things are well. That's why there were so many accidents back in the day. Now we have a lot better training and stuff like that. So, okay, so that was the bare minimum I was talking about with Transport Canada, how to send it. But the real thing there is when you're a new instructor, like, you don't know, is this guy ready? Or is she going to smack up the plane? I don't know. So, That's why in Canada, and I'm not sure if it's that way in the United States, but I did like a quick, as I usually do, my quick Wikipedia search or my quick Google search on the way it is. So it's kind of the same way it is in New Zealand, South Africa, I think. And so here in Canada, there's four different classes of instructors. So class one, two, three, four. You start off as a class four instructor, and you work your way up to, hey, I'm number one. So that's what I have. I have a class one instructor rating, and so that allows you to instruct instructors. And I'm not really sure. I think in the United States, I just read quickly. I don't want to give you any bad information there, so I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, for us, if you're starting off brand new, you've never sent anyone solo before, you get either a class two or a class one, like myself, to go and do a flight with the student and say, yeah, the student's okay. Or maybe the student needs to work on this a little bit. Maybe I'll take another flight with the student. And it's required to do that if you're a class four instructor. And then after a while, you go to class three, you can do your own recommendations for solo. And but even still, I always used to tell my instructors that, like, even if they were legally, they could send the student up solo whenever they wanted. But I always tell them, if you're not sure, I could take a flight with them. I mean, I've sent lots of people solo before, and I know what to look for. So, and eventually you pick that up. You pick that up pretty quickly, actually. You can say, oh yeah, this guy's got it, or it's like, well, she needs a little more work. You get better at it with time, like any job. So yeah, so I was just thinking specifically the way that it goes. Okay, now the way that I used to do it, it was pretty much, I'll tell you the way that I did it. It is in accordance with Transport Canada with a little bit more. So what we would do is we'd be flying with the student, and the magic number is three. We're looking for three good safe landings. Now the landings don't have to be perfect at first, but they have to be safe. Using the right technique, landing on the main wheels, like just in control, stabilized approaches, good airspeed control, stuff like that. So it's all safe. Yeah, you're off the center line a little bit, or you land a bit long, no big deal. But as long as what I always look for is that nice, consistent technique for landing. So so you got that, and you get your student gets their three. Probably before that, they were getting pretty good. And if you got three good ones in a row, now there might be like maybe the first one might be really bad because the student's nervous or something. But I always tell the student, first landing, it doesn't count. That's a mulligan. And then they get in the groove of things and they go boom, boom, boom. That's fine. And so if their average would be good and safe. You want your mean landing. I did a video before about a regression to the mean of whether someone's got a real awesome landing or bad landing. You want that mean landing to be safe. So okay, you get off the runway, and now you're on the taxiway. Now this is where I'm sure some places do it differently, but this is the way I used to do it. Okay, so after we got off that, we got a taxi clearance to go back to where I could jump out of the airplane. So I would say, okay, I have control, and then so I would taxi the airplane back. So, and this is one of the things I see a lot in YouTube videos where I disagree with it, and it kind of goes against the way it's taught in the book in Canada, where you'll see YouTube videos where the instructors there's beacon on blah 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 blah, blah and the students trying to fly the plane. But I can tell you, when the students trying to concentrate on flying the plane, they don't hear a word the instructor is saying, like nothing. So you could be going, oh, next time do this, do that, do that, do this, and the students going, and it just goes right out their ears. Like I've done that before, where I've just for fun, like I've said something like I don't know, it was like I would say like crazy stuff just to see if they really are paying attention. I said, like, okay, next time we land, we're gonna just point the nose at the ground, and we're gonna try to cartwheel it down the runway, okay, and make a nice big fireball. And they go, yeah, okay. It's just like there's nothing going on there. So if you said that now, if I said I have control and I'm flying the plane, and I said that to the student, they'd say, "What? Are you crazy?" But they would actually hear you. So uh, I would take control, taxi back, and then explain, do a little debrief. Say, "Okay, I'm thinking you're good to go for solo here. What do you think?" And they'll say, "Yeah, I feel pretty good about that." And you'll say, "Good, yeah, I think you're good too." And then you taxi back and do a little chit chat debrief. And in that debriefing, you want to keep it short, just like the book says, and don't nitpick every little thing. Okay, now watch this, pay attention to this, pay attention to this. Like you already know that the student's safe, and you don't want to overload them with too much things. Oh, what did you say? I forgot. And you don't want, the whole thing about the first solo is keep the stress level as low as possible, so they just do what they've been trained to do, and it works. So you want that stress level low, and that's also why I'm not a big fan of GoPro cameras in there filming the first solos, because then you know I don't know whether or people taking selfies and stuff like that, and it's like, no, you should be watching what's going on and paying attention to the radio, not like how's my makeup or whatever. Or I'm going to text my friend, OMG, I'm in an airplane by myself. It's like, no, don't do that. So uh what you got to do, yeah, so I'm okay, taxi the plane back, very short little debriefing, and then we go back to, ideally, go back to the place where the student's going to finish up their next flight, so that way everything is like exactly the same. There's not too much deviation. Sometimes there has to be, and the student has to be prepared to do some deviation from the regular plan, but okay, you try to keep it as normal, like it's just exactly the same as you've always been doing it. And then, so this is what I like to do, is like I like to jump out with the engine still running. I don't know. It's just kind of like, I think that's just the way it was trained. Is just don't shut down, just jump out. And that's probably some old school thing. You're probably not even supposed to do it. I don't know, but I always taught people to do that. And my thinking behind that is, like, you could have the student shut down, and then you safely get away without a spinny thing in the front. But well, depending on the airplane, you couldn't do that, because I know on a Diamond Katana, yeah, if the propeller's running, the canopy has to be closed. Otherwise, it'll damage the canopy, and you actually exit towards the propeller. So you couldn't do it on that type of airplane. But a Cessna 172 or a Cessna 150 or 152 or something. But yeah, I'd do it, and be careful. You could have debris and dirt and stuff like that. I always squint my eyes before I leave and stuff. And then even if I'm walking by, I'll go like this for the propeller blast by my glasses. Anyways, okay, and then okay, so I say, okay, we're gonna. Oh, and that's right. Okay, and I like to leave the engine running like that, because if the student shuts down and you say, okay, start it up, go do your run up, and I'll catch you back here when you're done. And the student goes, yeah, great. And they do everything exactly the same. So they're priming the heck out of the engine, or doing whatever they do. And then they try to get the engine started, and the engine won't start, because airplane engines are actually kind of tricky to start. They're not like your car. They're just, airplane engines are designed to run for a long, long time and be very reliable. But the sacrifice to that is that they're a little harder to start depending on the weather. So I didn't ever want to have the student in a position where they had to start the engine. They couldn't do it. Now they're nervous. Now I have to walk back and say, hey, oh, don't forget to do this. Mixture has to be rich. Oh, I'm so stupid. Yeah, no, they're all flustered, and they think they're looking like an idiot because they made a little mistake or something. And now you're going to send them up with a high stress level. Not good. So I'd say I think it's worth the little tiny risk of safely getting out of the airplane, heading towards the tail, of course, away from the spinny thing in the front, and then stress level stays low, and then you tell them, okay, go over. And actually, I made a little list here. I used to kind of always just kind of do it I don't know off the top of my head, but I actually wrote down what I did, and it's like, oh, that's pretty good. So, yeah, what do I do there? Yeah, you would debrief them on the way back too. That okay, you're going to be climbing. It's going to be climbing faster, but just keep the same speed, and everything will work out fine. Keep the speeds the same. Now, before I leave too, I would fasten the seatbelt behind me, because you don't want the seatbelts flopping around. Depending on the design of the plane, you could have a seatbelt flopping around. Maybe it gets wrapped around the flap handle or something, and you don't want that to happen. So just do up the seatbelt, and so it's not in the way of anything. Then I would tell the I usually give a little glance. Are the gauges all green? Fuel's good. Okay, then I get on the radio. I tell the control tower, "Hey, control tower, I'm sending up one of my students solo here." So now that you tell the control tower that, now they're watching out. They're watching out for your guy, or you're keeping your gal safe, and so that lowers the instructor's blood pressure, stress level too. And then, so after that, jump out. And usually, what I do, and everyone gets all tangled up on their headsets and stuff like that when they're coming in and out of airplanes. But what I would do, I would just keep my headset on, and I'd say to them, "Okay, all right, any questions? No? Okay, good. Have a good flight." And then I just unplug my headset and just walk away from the plane with the headset still on, and maybe a kneeboard or whatever I got with me. Just take it all out, make sure the seatbelt's there, close the door, done. Walk away from the airplane, and then and don't look back at the airplane, because the student's going to be looking at you like, I'm by myself now. And if you look back at them and you're going like, you want to keep the stress level down. Like you got to walk away cool, like, yeah, I know my students got it, you know. And then yeah, this is the first solo is really it's all about a confidence building exercise. So then, okay, they go, and you tell them just do everything exactly the same, uh, and do one circuit. Do your run out, do your circuit, make your radio calls, come back, and I'll meet you here, or I'll meet you right over there by the gas pump or whatever. And then make sure everything's clear what they have to do. And I was told that, yeah, it's good to tell them, okay, specify, okay, you do one takeoff, fly around, one landing, come back here. Because I know it's been, I don't know, pretty good. I know a person that did that, and the instructor didn't tell him that. So he just started doing a bunch of touch and goes. The instructor's sitting on the ground like, what? You can't land the plane? What's going on? And the student just thought, oh, I just thought I could just go flying. You know, other ones, they do it like they go take off and go buzz away from the airport, and like, where'd it go? Yeah, I've heard of that happening too. But yeah, so very specific about one circuit. Run up circuit, and come on back. And there you go. And after that, you should congratulate your student. And so Wrench is asking here too, do you cut their shirt after? Now that's kind of more of an American thing here in Canada and the Commonwealth countries of Canada, England, as far as I know, Australia, South Africa, I think too, is that usually you get your student and you dunk them with water. So you get a big bucket of water to splash your student. And at first I would surprise my students, but then they get kind of pissed off. They got to get back to work, and you're dunking them with water. It's like, man, oh man, you could have warned me. It's like, well, but the thing is, I always did. I always told them is like, yeah, okay. Then we come back here, another few flights, you're going to be going solo, and you come back, and then we dunk you with water. Then I do dunk them with the water, and they say, I thought you were joking about that. And I was like, no, that's what we do. So yeah, so we don't cut out the shirts. Some where I was where I learned how to fly, you're required to wear a tie. So you make sure you go to the secondhand store and get the crappiest looking tie, and then they cut your tie. So yeah, there were some really interesting solo ties there that looked absolutely terrible. So I remember this one dude, who's he flying for now? He's flying a Dash 8. Last I heard, he was flying a Dash 8 down in the Caribbean, but it was this guy had this tie. It was like this kid's tie, this kid's leather tie. It was about this long. It looked so stupid. And then they cut it off, so no big deal. All right. Well, that was a fun little trip down memory lane for me. And yeah, so if you are an instructor and you're sending your student solo, just keep the stress level low. Try to keep it as consistently the same as everything that you've been doing. And always ask a more senior instructor if you have any questions on how to send these guys solo. And there we go. That is about it. So I think I'm just babbling away here. It's like 25 minutes now. Okay, cool. So that's about it. Send your students solo, be nice and safe and everything. And I'm going to shut her down. So here we go. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.